I guess I would start with Mary McGill, my little Irish grandmother, because her story is the most interesting of the family. And Mary McGill lived in Ireland with her mom and dad and her little brother. And they were there during the potato famine. And they were tenants on the land, so it became more pricey for the landlords to try to feed the tenants than to get them passage to America. So they paid their passage to go to America. But the ships they put them on were not necessarily seaworthy. Many of them were older ships that probably shouldn't have tried to make that kind of a journey. And on their passage over to America, they hit an iceberg. And this was before the Titanic. They managed to get off the ship with a trunk, and the four of them were on the iceberg. And it's all documented that a ship picked them up. We saw their passage thing on the ship they were on that did sink. And during the interval while they were on the iceberg, they saw other people that floated away and were never recovered. And they made it to Canada. Bruno and I went to Ellis Island to look up a lot of our relatives' things there, and they were never there because they came into Canada. So it was Mary McGill was my grandmother, and she was a little girl. And she eventually grew up and married a Donnelly, which my grandma Catherine was Catherine Donnelly. And they had a big family. Grandma Catherine was the oldest of the family. And in those days, when you were pregnant, you had your babies at home. So her younger sister was in the United States. And so Grandma Catherine came to Appleton to her sister's house to help her with the birth of her baby. And that is where she met my grandpa, Cornelius van Heuklan. So she stayed in America, in Appleton, and married Grandpa. And they had many children. I think they had 8 or something. But eventually there was a fire in their home, and Grandpa, this was right after I was born, which would be like around 1939. And Grandpa had to jump out of a window, an upstairs window, to escape the fire. And they thought he was all right, but apparently he had ruptured something, and 3 days later he died. So she was left to raise quite a big family on her own. Then my mother met my dad, Arnold Vanderloop, and they got married and had 8 children. And my dad, as a young man, he decided he somehow got into it. Well, when he was very young in high school, he never finished high school because he was the oldest in his family in Little Chute, and he had to go out and get a job. And he worked for Gladymans and Gage and drove a horse and buggy to deliver for them. And he was robbed. He said they had to stop at railroad tracks in Little Chute, and he was robbed. And so he lost his job after that. He never was able to finish high school, but he was very, very smart and could fix anything. He was just good at everything. My dad married my mother, Cecilia van Heuklan, and they had 8 children. I'm the 6th children of all of them. But my dad went to work first in the shoe store, or a shoe shop. He was a cobbler, and worked in a little building at the top of the bridge on Lost Street, on the Lost Street Bridge. And my brothers all worked and helped him. They were little boys then. But then eventually he moved over to the basement of the Kaukauna Hotel. And during that time, the Kaukauna Hotel burned down. And my dad wanted to still work for himself, so he bought a building in Wisconsin Avenue in Kaukauna and turned it into a tavern. It was Arnie's Bar. And my brothers have great stories about running in and out of the bar. They weren't supposed to be in the bar, but they would cut through, and it was on the river, so they had a great childhood living there. But my mother was upstairs with 5 children, and she was actually doing fish lunches and things besides all that. And then 8 years after my older sister, Dee Dee, I was born. And I was a very terrible baby, apparently. But generally, I have to say I have a blessed life. I had a wonderful life, good husband, good, wonderful children. I have good friends. I have 10 friends or 9 friends that we get together every year since we were in high school. We went to kindergarten together and we're still together. And Dad, too, has good friends yet from high school. Because we stayed in Kaukauna, we kept a lot of ties that a lot of people don't have. Even all of our friends that come from out of state, they always seem to find us because Bruno and I grew up with them in high school.